Seeds of Resistance. The Millfield Public Library had stood for over a century, its red brick walls and arched windows a testament to the town's resilience. Inside, Thea Novak shelved books with practiced efficiency, pausing occasionally to admire the afternoon light streaming through stained glass. At 32, she'd found her purpose within these walls, not just as head librarian, but as the keeper of the town's collective memory. "Ms. Novak, did you see this?" Olivia, her assistant, rushed over with a tablet. "They've officially announced it." Thea's stomach tightened as she read the headline. Mercer Technologies purchases downtown block for new rural innovation campus. The article featured a photograph of Julian Mercer, founder and CEO, standing confidently before architectural renderings that showed gleaming glass structures, where the library currently stood. "They can't just erase a century of history," Thea murmured, setting down the book in her hands. "They're offering triple the property value," Olivia said. "The town council is meeting tonight to discuss it." That evening, Thea stood before the council, clutching a folder of signatures and historical documents. "This library serves over 2,000 residents monthly," she argued, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "It's the only free source of internet for many families, the only after-school haven for dozens of children, and houses irreplaceable local archives." From the back of the room, Julian Mercer watched with interest. He hadn't expected opposition to his project, certainly not from someone so articulate. Most small towns welcomed his innovation campuses with open arms. They meant jobs, technology, and a future for places being left behind. "Ms. Novak," Mayor Porter interrupted, "Mercer Technologies is offering to build a digital learning center with the latest technology. Surely that serves our community better than a building that costs more to heat than our annual book budget." "Technology without context is just noise," Thea responded, locking eyes briefly with Mercer. "This isn't about resisting progress. It's about honoring where we've been while moving forward." After the meeting, Julian approached her in the parking lot. "Ms. Novak, I admire your passion," he said, extending his hand. "But I think you misunderstand my intentions." "I understand perfectly," she replied, not taking his offered hand. "You see an undervalued asset in a struggling town. I see the heart of our community." Julian dropped his hand but maintained his composure. "I'd like to offer you a position on our community integration team. 6 figures, full benefits, and you'd help shape how we preserve Millfield's heritage within our campus." Thea smiled thinly. "You're trying to buy me off." "I'm recognizing talent," he countered. "Mr. Mercer, I've dedicated my career to this library because I believe some things shouldn't be measured by market value. If you want to understand this town, start by getting a library card." She turned toward her modest sedan. "The world is changing, Ms. Novak," he called after her. "We can either shape that change or be left behind." She paused, one hand on her car door. "Some things are worth preserving, Mr. Mercer. I hope someday you'll understand the difference between price and value." As she drove away, Julian found himself smiling. Most people either feared him or flattered him. Thea Novak had done neither. For the first time in years, someone had looked at Julian Mercer, not his wealth, not his company, not his power, and had been thoroughly unimpressed. He pulled out his phone. "Rebecca, cancel my flight back to Seattle. I'm staying in Millfield for a while, and find me a place to rent, something local." He paused. "Also, I'll need a library card." Unexpected impressions. The library's ancient heating system groaned in protest against the October chill. Thea wrapped her cardigan tighter and continued cataloging donations when the front door chimed. She looked up to find Julian Mercer standing awkwardly in jeans and a simple gray sweater, a stark contrast to his tailored suit at the council meeting. "I'd like to apply for a library card," he said, placing his ID on the counter. Thea raised an eyebrow. "Staying in Millfield longer than planned?" "I rented the Peterson farmhouse for a month." He glanced around the library. "I believe in understanding what I'm working with." "You mean what you're replacing?" she corrected, processing his application with brisk efficiency. Julian accepted the card, their fingers briefly touching. "Actually, I'm reconsidering aspects of the project. Would you show me what makes this place special? As a library patron, of course." Against her better judgment, Thea agreed. For the next hour, she guided him through the building, the children's corner with its hand-painted murals from the 1940s, the local history archives containing journals from the town's founders, the community room where they hosted everything from ESL classes to quilting circles. "This is Millfield's living room," she explained, showing him a wall of photographs spanning decades. When the mine closed in '86, people gathered here to support each other. During the flood of '97, we were an emergency shelter for 2 weeks. Last year, when the school had asbestos issues, we hosted classes here for a month. Julian studied the photographs with genuine interest. "My algorithm identified this property based on usage metrics versus operating costs. It didn't capture this." He gestured to the space around them. "Some things can't be quantified, Mr. Mercer." "Julian," he corrected softly. In the following weeks, Julian became a regular presence, not just at the library, but around town. Thea spotted him chatting with elderly patrons, having coffee at Delia's diner, and once helping Mr. Woodson change a flat tire outside the post office. He carried a notebook everywhere, scribbling observations rather than tapping on his phone like she'd expected. One evening, he volunteered at the library's weekly reading program for children. Thea watched amused as the tech billionaire sat cross-legged on the floor, dramatically narrating The Paper Bag Princess to enthralled 6-year-olds. "You're full of surprises," she commented as they cleaned up afterward. He shrugged. "My grandmother was a teacher. She'd take me to the Detroit Public Library every Saturday. It was the only time my father couldn't reach us with his expectations. Is that why you're in tech? Escaping expectations?" Julian considered this. "I started Mercer Technologies to connect people. Somewhere along the way, it became about disruption instead of connection." He shelved a stray book. "What about you?" "Always wanted to be a librarian. I wanted to be an archaeologist," she admitted. "Then my father died and my mother needed help with my younger brother. The library became my excavation site, uncovering stories, preserving history, but staying close to home." "Your brother? He's grown now?" "Ethan's finishing college, engineering at Michigan State." Pride warmed her voice. "You sacrificed your dreams for his." Thea frowned. "It wasn't a sacrifice. It was a choice. There's a difference." Julian studied her face in the dimming light. "You know what fascinates me about you, Thea? You see limitations as opportunities. Most people I know, myself included, see opportunities but ignore the limitations they create. Is that a compliment or criticism?" she asked, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. "An observation," he replied softly. "One that's making me rethink more than just this project." As they locked up the library, snow began falling, the first of the season. Julian instinctively reached out to steady Thea on the slippery steps, his hand warm against the small of her back. The touch lingered longer than necessary, and when their eyes met, something shifted between them, an understanding that they stood on dangerous ground. And not just because of the ice. "Good night, Julian," she said, stepping away. "Thea," he called as she walked to her car. "What if there was a way to save the library and bring my campus to Millfield? Would you help me find it?" She paused, snowflakes catching in her dark hair. "I'd need to see more than good intentions. Come to Seattle. See what my company actually does. Then decide." The old Thea would have refused outright. But the man before her wasn't the corporate raider she'd expected. Against all logic, she was beginning to trust him. "I'll think about it," she promised, and drove away wondering when exactly Julian Mercer had become more than just an adversary. Shifting priorities. The Seattle skyline glittered beyond the wall-to-wall windows of Mercer Technologies' headquarters. Thea felt distinctly out of place in her sensible blazer among the sleek employees with their holographic displays and earnest discussions about neural interfaces. "This is our Community Impact Division," Julian explained, guiding her through an open workspace. "They've implemented digital literacy programs in over 400 underserved communities." "Impressive," Thea acknowledged, "but digital literacy works best when built on foundational literacy." "Libraries provide both," Julian nodded. "That's why I wanted you here. You see blind spots I've missed." For 3 days, Thea witnessed both the brilliant innovation and the corporate machinery of Julian's empire. She observed how employees straightened when he entered rooms, how his casual suggestions became immediate priorities. Yet she also noted how he remembered names, asked thoughtful questions, and maintained the curious intensity she'd glimpsed in Millfield. On the final evening, Julian hosted her at his penthouse, a surprisingly warm space filled with books and art, overlooking the Puget Sound. "This isn't what I expected," Thea admitted, examining his collection of first-edition exploration narratives. "The glass and steel bachelor pad?" He smiled, pouring her a glass of wine. "I spend 16 hours daily surrounded by technology. Home needs to feel different." Over dinner, Julian revealed his revised vision. Not demolishing the library, but expanding it, integrating Mercer's technology while preserving the historical structure. The campus would be built on adjacent vacant lots, with the library serving as its cultural and educational hub. "It's not perfect," he admitted, "but it honors what matters to Millfield while bringing opportunities." Thea studied him across the candlelit table. "Why are you doing this, really?" "Your board would prefer the original plan. It's more efficient, more profitable." Julian set down his glass. "When I was 12, my father tore down my treehouse to expand our garage. It was just wood and nails, but it was where I dreamed, read, invented." He never understood what that space meant. He met her gaze. "I don't want to be that person destroying something precious because I can't see its value. And the fact that I'm fighting you has nothing to do with it?" Thea challenged gently. "Everything to do with it," he admitted. "You made me look twice. Few people in my life do that anymore." Back in Millfield, while Julian remained in Seattle finalizing his revised proposal, Thea faced unexpected resistance. The town council, initially opposed to Julian's plan, now embraced it enthusiastically, the original version, with its complete redevelopment and higher tax revenue. "We need jobs more than books," Mayor Porter argued when Thea presented Julian's compromise. "Mercer's offering a future for our children." "A future that erases their past," Thea countered. Councilwoman Green sighed. "Thea, we know you've spent time with Mr. Mercer. Perhaps your personal feelings are clouding your judgment?" The insinuation stung. "This isn't personal. It's about protecting what belongs to all of us." Outside, protests had formed, not against Julian's plan, but against Thea's resistance. "Progress over nostalgia," read one sign held by a former library board member. Faces she'd known her entire life now regarded her as an obstacle rather than an advocate. That evening, as Thea closed the library alone, Olivia having resigned to accept a position with Mercer Technologies' advanced team, she felt the weight of her isolation. Her phone buzzed with a message from Julian. Board meeting ran late. How did the council respond to the revised plan? She couldn't bring herself to tell him that the town now wanted his original vision, that her neighbors saw the library as expendable, or that everyone assumed her principles had been compromised by feelings she wasn't ready to acknowledge. Instead, she typed, "They're considering options." "When are you returning?" His response came quickly, "Tomorrow. I have something important to discuss with you." Thea gazed around the empty library, running her hand along the worn wooden shelves. For the first time, she questioned whether she was fighting the right battle, and for the right reasons. Breaking point. A fierce spring storm lashed against the library windows as Thea worked late, digitizing fragile historical documents, a project she'd started with quiet funding Julian had arranged through a local preservation grant. Their relationship had evolved into an uneasy alliance over the past 3 months, professional on the surface but charged with unspoken possibilities. Julian's revised proposal had gained traction with preservationists, but faced opposition from both the town council, who wanted maximum development, and his own board, who questioned the reduced profit margins. He walked a precarious line, spending weeks shuttling between Millfield and Seattle. The library door burst open, startling Thea. Julian stood drenched in the doorway, his expression grim. "The board voted to proceed with the original plan," he announced without preamble. "They've scheduled demolition for next month." Thea felt the blood drain from her face. "But you're the CEO, can't you—" "I built a company with investors who expect returns," he interrupted, running a hand through his wet hair. They've agreed to delay only if I can prove the revised plan's financial viability within 2 weeks. Lightning illuminated the tension in his features as he approached her desk. I've been trying to satisfy everyone, my board, this town, you, and I'm failing spectacularly. What are you saying? Thea's voice was barely audible over the storm. I'm saying I need to choose. He looked around at the library, then back to her. Thea, A deafening crack interrupted him as lightning struck nearby. The lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness broken only by intermittent flashes from the storm. The backup generator should kick in, Thea said, reaching for her phone's flashlight. Julian's hand caught hers in the darkness. Listen to me. I came to tell you that I've found a solution, but it requires a sacrifice. Before he could elaborate, Thea's phone rang, the library's emergency line forwarded to her cell. The basement was flooding, threatening the archives. Within minutes, they were downstairs, wading through ankle-deep water, frantically moving irreplaceable documents to higher shelves. These are the town's original land grants, Thea explained, passing Julian a waterproof container. And these journals belong to Millfield's founder. Working in near darkness, they managed to save most of the collection before a secondary leak sent water cascading down the main staircase, effectively trapping them in the basement. The structural engineer warned me about this last year, Thea said bitterly. The town couldn't afford the repairs. Julian examined the crumbling foundation with his flashlight. This building needs more than cosmetic preservation, Thea. It's literally falling apart. Like everything else in this town, she replied, sinking onto the stairs, suddenly exhausted. Maybe everyone's right. Maybe I'm clinging to something that can't be saved. Julian sat beside her, their shoulders touching. The archives we just saved, they're Millfield's heart, not these walls. What if we could preserve what matters while letting go of what doesn't? What's your sacrifice, Julian? She asked, remembering his interrupted revelation. He was quiet for a moment, water lapping at their feet. I'm stepping down as CEO. The board gets a leader who'll maximize profits, and I get controlling interest in the Millfield project to run as I see fit. Thea stared at him through the darkness. You'd give up your company? For a small-town library? Not for the library, he said softly, finding her hand in the darkness. For what it represents. For the woman who showed me what matters. The honesty in his voice stripped away her last defenses. When his lips found hers in the darkness, Thea realized she'd been fighting not just for the library, but against her feelings for him, afraid that loving Julian would mean betraying her principles. As the storm raged above them, they clung to each other, two stubborn souls finally admitting that what they'd built together might be worth more than what they'd been fighting to save separately. Common ground sunlight streamed through new stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns across the gleaming wood floors of what the Millfield Register was now calling the most innovative historic library in America. 6 months after the flood, the building had been transformed, its exterior painstakingly preserved while its interior merged 19th-century craftsmanship with 21st-century technology. Thea adjusted her dress nervously as townspeople filed in for the grand reopening. The renovation had been a true community effort, funded by the Mercer Foundation but executed by local craftspeople who'd poured their skills into saving the beloved landmark. Stop fidgeting, whispered Ethan, her brother, looking handsome in his new suit. You've pulled off a miracle here. We all did, she corrected, watching Mr. Woodson demonstrate a digital archive kiosk to his grandchildren. The touch screen showed his grandfather's mining photographs alongside oral histories he'd recorded himself. The crowd parted as Julian entered, no longer the imposing CEO, but still commanding attention in his understated way. Since stepping down from day-to-day operations at Mercer Technologies, he'd established a smaller innovation hub in Millfield, focusing on rural technology solutions while letting his successor handle the corporate empire. Ready? he asked, joining Thea at the podium. She nodded, taking in the space they'd created together. The original reading room now connected to a modern glass addition housing classrooms and a technology center. Behind the library, construction continued on a modest innovation campus that would bring 70 jobs to Millfield without overwhelming its character. Their compromise hadn't pleased everyone initially. The preservation purists thought they'd conceded too much. The development faction felt they hadn't conceded enough. But as the project took shape, opposition had given way to cautious optimism, then genuine excitement. "This is just the beginning," Julian told the gathered crowd after Thea's introduction. "What we're building isn't just about balancing past and future. It's about recognizing that they strengthen each other." He described how Millfield's new technology hub would focus on digitizing and preserving rural histories across the country, creating both jobs and a new kind of cultural conservation. "We're not just saving one library," he explained. "We're creating a model for how small towns everywhere can honor their heritage while embracing change." Later, as the celebration continued around them, Julian led Thea to a secluded corner of the new rooftop garden. "There's one feature I didn't include in the tour," he said, unlocking a door that revealed a cozy room lined with bookshelves and featuring a single desk beneath a skylight. "The library director's private study," he explained, "for when you need escape from both the past and the future." Thea wandered the small space in wonder, trailing her fingers along shelves already filled with her favorite volumes. "How did you—" "Olivia helped," he admitted. "Consider it a thank you for teaching a stubborn tech mogul about value beyond price." Thea turned to him, emotion tightening her throat. "You gave up an empire and gained a kingdom," he countered, taking her hands. "The board's actually thrilled. Our Rural Innovation Initiative is generating positive press and opening markets we'd overlooked. Sometimes the least profitable decision on paper becomes the most valuable in practice." Through the skylight, they could see the town spreading below them, the historic square now buzzing with new businesses, the community garden Julian had helped establish, and in the distance, the modest campus taking shape among preserved green space. "We're still going to fight," Thea warned him with a smile. "I haven't suddenly become a technology evangelist, and I haven't become a preservation purist," he agreed. "But I've learned there's strength in those tensions. We're better together than apart." As sunset painted Millfield in golden light, Julian pulled a small box from his pocket. "Speaking of together, I had this whole elaborate proposal planned, but then I realized we've never done anything the conventional way." He opened the box to reveal a vintage ring with a modern setting. "Like this library, like us, honoring the past while building something new." Thea looked from the ring to the man holding it, the corporate titan who'd become a community builder, the adversary who'd become essential to her life. Their journey had never been about winning or losing, but about finding common ground neither could have discovered alone. "Yes," she said simply as he slid the ring onto her finger. "Yes to all of it." As they sealed their promise with a kiss, the library hummed with activity below them. Children discovering books, seniors learning technology, historians and futurists working side by side. In finding each other, Thea and Julian had created something neither could have envisioned alone, a bridge between what was and what could be, built on the foundation of who they were together.